Welcome yet again to the Hardy's Hotline. I am Cami Clements, the Hooked Hardy, and you all know my lovely co-host Sarah, the Hawk-eyed Hardy. We are down to the wire, me hearties. We are
starting on the accents early this evening. I see.
That's a pirate. That's just for fun.
That's for fun, but it's warming you up.
Moving on. We are down to the wire. We are down to season 9, episode 11, Smoke on the Water. Whew. This is getting tense. I've said that word many times, but the more it happens, the more tense it gets. So I just want to cut straight to the chase. And Sarah, let's talk about spouses for a minute. Because we've got 3 sets of spouses currently that are being featured.
Okay.
We have the Yoasts. We have the Canfields. We have the Coulters.
Yes.
So
all lovely couples.
What was that?
Lovely couples.
Lovely couples.
All at different places in their marriage.
Yes. And going through different stages of their marriage. So I particularly, because the Coulters are kind of their own storyline, but I want to particularly draw attention to the contrast between the Canfields and the Yoasts.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying. You know exactly what I'm saying. So, number 1, you've got the Yoasts over here with Ned saying, "When you're upset, please wake me." Like, that does not sound like a grumpy husband.
Also, though, they're still sort of in the newlywed phase.
They are very much in the newlywed stage. But it's just, he's not grumpy about the idea of being awakened if she's upset. Right. And when Florence asks, "How can you stay so even-tempered?" Because, okay, I counted. She tore 6. He tore down 1. She tore down 6 of those flyers. Just boom.
I'm sure she did more than that.
I'm sure she did, but
I don't think there's any flyers left.
No, probably not. But yeah, we have him saying, "Well, I think that you should take up a hobby. Why don't you resume your dancing?" Very supportive and very encouraging. And then you just have that beautiful, "Thank you for loving me so." And it just, it's the sweetest thing ever. And then
they're the couple we didn't know we needed after a year ago. We didn't know this was going to be so amazing.
I mean, I think that if we had more of an inkling that we would have, but you're absolutely right. Yeah, you are absolutely right. This pairing, we love you, Hrothgar. We love you, Loretta.
They're perfect.
And then you have the Canfields. Now, they start out really happy to see each other after a long absence. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. So let me ask you something. Do you ever experience what Joseph is experiencing when you get done visiting your spouse's family? Is there ever a repeat of behavior? Any kind of behavior?
On whose part?
Your spouse when visiting his family.
Well, I mean, I think we've talked briefly before just about when people are around, especially people that grew up in one area with their family and moved away. I think we talked about this with season 2 with Elizabeth, how she moved away and really grew up away from her family. And then when she went back, she kind of sort of regressed a little bit back into maybe the teen version of Elizabeth, the person who did what her parents told her. Her parents weren't, her parents were more in charge, and she did what they said, and she wasn't really thinking for herself as much. And I think you fall back into patterns when you're around people that knew you at a different stage in your life.
Yes, but I want to know about.
And yes, yes, that definitely has happened in my personal life. I think it happens with myself. I actually live close with to my parents and my brother, but I still feel like when I'm around them for having a family dinner or a gathering or something, that I do feel like I tend to act a little differently and more like I did when I was younger. And I know that I recognize similar things in my husband, although I didn't know him when he was a teenager. I do tend to think that I just see different sides of personalities coming out when they're around each other. And so, yeah, I think that's a really big factor. And it makes me wonder what has happened in these past visits to Minnie's family.
Because it sounds like her father is trying to encourage, we don't know exactly how strongly, but it sounds like Minnie's father is trying to encourage Joseph to take money. And him being the very prideful, independent, hardworking person that he is, it feels challenged.
Right. And this does sound similar to some Jack and Elizabeth storylines, because Minnie comes from a more well-to-do family than Joseph does. And Jack wouldn't take money either.
He wouldn't take the job.
Well, but I think I'm also thinking of like when Elizabeth suggested they ask her parents for money when they had their loan issue, which oddly, there's a loan issue happening here with the Canfields as well.
History repeats itself.
So many callbacks.
Okay, well, question of the day. I'm going to let Sarah do this one. It's usually my thing, but she came up with it today. So speaking of this one, speaking of the Yoasts, Sarah, what is the question of the day? Tell us.
The question of the day is, what will Ned invent next?
Oh my goodness.
So Band-Aid, crossword puzzles,
a popping toaster.
Yeah, automatic popping up toaster.
I feel like we're missing something. Anyway, so yes, what is Ned going to invent next? I say the self-heating tea kettle.
Okay. I came up with a question. I have to come up with an answer too.
Your choice.
Maybe something that can help Florence with the phone system.
Or the foot spa bath for her poor arches.
Oh, that's fitting. Good idea.
Okay. Were you as impressed as I was by that picture of Florence going up onto the tow point?
I was very impressed. It didn't appear to be, it appeared to be Loretta.
It appeared to be Loretta in those point shoes. Yes.
Yeah.
And
there was no fancy camera work there going on.
And I think they did that on purpose. They did the wide shot to show us that it was her. I knew that she had done some dancing, but I did not know that Loretta was a ballet dancer. At least if I did know, I had forgotten. So I wonder,
that's amazing.
I wonder how that felt for her. I wonder how long it's been since she's been up on point shoes.
Yeah.
Wow.
But speaking of that scene, is that just the local hangout for all the girls now? They just hang out in the salon? Even when it's closed?
Why are you in the salon. Why are you not in the back room of the Mercantile or in your room or in your
own home? I mean, I realize they didn't probably want to come up with a whole other set.
But it
showing their home.
It did seem odd.
It was funny.
Maybe the only thing early.
The only thing I could think was that it has the mirrors. Like a dance studio would have all the mirrors.
That's true. But
it was funny. And it seemed like she hadn't spoken to Fiona since this whole thing had happened, because when Fiona came in, she kind of made a point to address her, and
Fiona said, I'm so sorry about my involvement.
And she would have been the one that Florence would have had to ask if she could use the salon. So, this is just where we hang out now. Rosemary and Elizabeth are there all the time. Just the two of them.
Oh man. Yeah. This has now become Saved by the Bells Max. This is the Max of Hope Valley.
Yes, I was thinking Central Perk from Friends.
Oh, there you go.
Like the hangout.
Oh goodness. Okay. Speaking of props, meaning the point shoes, I saw the teacup again.
Gustav got to hold the teacup.
Yes, but first it was Elizabeth on the couch.
Oh, yes.
Looking down and watching Lucas and Jack playing on the floor.
Oh, I loved that. I know it was supposed to show him being more introverted and not engaging with her, but I was like, but he's playing on the floor
with her son.
I'm like, that's adorable. And he had like his jacket off and he's just like relaxed.
He had his jacket off a lot in this episode, especially for him.
I don't necessarily think it's him having his jacket off more. I think we're seeing that side of him more.
Oh yeah,
that wasn't really on camera as much, because everything we were seeing of him before was at work or in public, and now we're seeing him at home. Might not be his home yet, but or they're seeing him in his, off-duty time with his family.
Even when he was at the saloon, at the place that he owned in his place of business, when he saw Elizabeth, and we'll get to that in a second, he was just in a shirt and suspenders, and the collar was unbuttoned and everything, and there was no tie and there was no vest or jacket. While we're on the subject, let's go to those two people and let's add in somebody else who seems deeply involved with conversations of the two of them.
I don't think you could get more cryptic about this.
But and yet everybody knows who I'm talking about. I had to see just a tiny bit of irony when they are in the salon and Elizabeth says, "Never mind, it's too embarrassing." And Rosemary says, "Elizabeth, it's me," and tells her to sit down. And I'm just like, after the conversation we had about the coal mine, this is very telling that she was just embarrassed, not hesitant to share it with Rosemary. And I thought, well, obviously that bridge is mended. I'm glad to hear that. But
well, I mean, this isn't exactly newsworthy information.
No, well, for Rosemary,
not for the newspaper. There wouldn't be like this tempting desire to put it on the front page.
Well, I don't know. Local business owner engaged to school teacher.
Oh, we can have like a society column now.
In Hope Valley. Anyway, I think it was one of my favorite interchanges when she kind of pouts, Elizabeth kind of pouts and says, "He never gave me my present." And then Rosemary is genuinely shocked. Elizabeth, it's never been about the gifts with you. And she's like, no, it wasn't. And it was almost as if Rosemary was saying, who are you and what have you done with my best friend? But I really liked that. I really liked that they made that distinction and they made that kind of callback to her character. Because, a lot of people have been saying that Elizabeth has been going through a lot of changes, and not just in life, but her personality has gone through some changes. And we all change as we grow and learn. But I really thought that that was a really good callback to her character and the way that she is, because yes, it has never been about the gifts. And that goes all the way back to season 1 when she tells dear little Pockets, Albert, that ladies don't care about the gifts. They care about the person inside. And that has continued. And I thought that the way every time Jack did give her a gift, it was a very thoughtful gift. It wasn't just show. And so I thought that was really important to make that pronouncement and to make that distinction. It's never been about the gifts. No, it wasn't this time. I thought he was going to propose, and then I thought he had changed his mind.
Right. And that whole explanation makes a lot of sense, because like we talked about last week, it didn't make a lot of sense that he had continually put off giving her the gift. So it makes sense that she would be confused.
If it had been merely a birthday gift, wouldn't he have just given it to me?
Right. Like, here's your gift.
And okay, we're there. We might as well just go there. So the scene where she pops in and he says, Elizabeth, you're soaked. I'm like, I
don't know that soaked was the right terminology.
Like picnic caught in the rain and ducking into the car, that's soaked.
Elizabeth, you've run through the rain. You have a few raindrops on you. Doesn't have the same ring to it.
No, it doesn't. But terminology aside, I love that Lucas's first instinct is to protect her, to take care of her. And just, Elizabeth, you're soaked. Grabs the coat, immediately puts it around her before she can even get a word out. She bursts in the office and says something and he realizes she's there. And so she got those words out. But then he puts the coat on her before she can begin, and her little, okay, just say it.
Yeah.
You can hear that inner struggle. Okay.
That would be so hard. That is so hard in any relationship, to bring up a suspected proposal. Like, that's awkward.
That is so awkward. Oh my God.
No matter what stage of relationship, if you really truly think you're ready for it or not, like, that's a tough subject to just bring up. Like, yeah, I thought you were going to propose to me. Like, where do you go from there in this conversation? If he is going to propose and he does have a ring in his pocket right at the moment, like, then you're potentially ruining a surprise that he's trying to have for you, or so many factors.
And let's also not forget that we're in 1919, 1920, when women did not do that. I saw your tweet. Cammy, did you write this scene?
It was just like down to the wire. I was like, that's exactly what you wanted to happen. That was
we
your word.
Have the L word.
The L word. We do not have the T word. For those of you,
T word.
For anyone who's seen any of Tammy's podcasts, you know what I'm talking about. I'm sure it's come up in every podcast.
Hey,
anybody who's new tonight, Cammy does not care for when characters say I love you too. So when there is an I love you too
thing, it's just me.
it is very important to you. It is okay. Here's question of the day, Cami.
Another one.
This is Cami's question of the day.
Oh boy.
Okay, so you've got the I love you twos right here, and you've got facial hair over here.
Oh,
What
man.
do you do?
Oh,
Where are these gonna lie?
Facial hair. Facial hair comes first in the dislike.
Okay, you dislike it more?
I dislike facial hair more.
Okay. Is it like really close?
Probably. I never thought about the comparison. But, okay, now may we move on. Can we go to the scene?
Well, but that's part of the scene. I mean, I don't argue with you. I agree with all of your reasoning behind this. I don't necessarily take as much stock in it as you do, but I will 100% admit that in this scene, that was perfect.
Yeah.
Had she said, I love you too in this scene, it would have lost a bit of the depth.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel that way in every scene that I've seen that in, for sure. Because a lot of people use I love you too.
Right.
And I think it can work beautifully. In this scene, I'm really glad they didn't. I'm right there with you. I think it really held a lot of power.
Yeah, but I'm okay with two in some scenes, and very rarely am I okay with facial hair. You know.
Although this I love you had facial hair. So
this I love you had facial hair, but I've grown accustomed to Lucas having facial hair. And it's not, you know, caveman bushy. It's very trim. It's very nice looking. So did you like that?
that was great. That was great. I would like to call attention in this I love you scene to Lucas's expression when she said I love you. His smile was so wide and genuine, and it was more like, he's usually very, like we talked about, he's very proper and he's very formal, and this was just like, I don't know, it was so much more of a personal smile.
You're hearing that the person you are in love with is in love with you back. I mean, and you're saying it out loud to each other for the first time, which is a good thing before the ring shows up.
The other thing you were hoping for, yes.
Yes. The other thing about Lucas's smile, number one, I have this thing. I love it when the man says it first. I just do. You know, I just do. It's the whole knight in shining armor thing, I guess.
Well, I mean, and it totally fit the scene and the situation and their relationship. I mean, there are certain situations where it would make sense the other way, but this wouldn't have, I don't think.
Yeah, but just how he got the smile on his face, as if he was saying to himself, I'm going to say it. You know,
right?
This is my moment.
This is my moment.
This is the moment. Hey, you're always trying to get me to sing.
Well, it's not very hard.
Okay, fair enough. But his smile right before he said it, you know, because he thought of saying it and then he said it, and her smile at hearing it. After I watched it the first time, my memory got a little fuzzy throughout the day, and I had this image of her saying it right away, like almost an automatic reply. I'm like, well, that's not very good. And then I watched it again, like, oh no, she didn't. And I loved the way she did it. She smiled, she took it in. She was a little surprised, even though they're talking about a ring, you know. She was still a little surprised. And then she thought for a split second and she said, "I love you." And yeah.
What do you think is going through his mind when he's finding out that she thought he was proposing?
Oh gosh.
Because I mean, it's an interesting dynamic. In lots of ways, I totally understand why he then chose to immediately grab the box and give it to her. And like, I get it. But at the same time, I'm like, maybe just say what happened first instead of like standing there holding the box all like you're proposing now. Like, to me.
Well, and the look on her face was very much
Like,
he's proposing, he's proposing, he's proposing.
You know, after this dialogue, he knows that she thinks that's what he's doing. So why would you continue to stand there and make her think that's what you're doing? And then apologize. And then he was super duper sweet. And I'm sorry if I gave you any reason, you know.
Do you love how they both said, now I say it out loud, it feels silly, you know?
Yes, of course. And it does. And it all makes sense. But that was the only part where I was kind of like, so don't keep leading her on for another I mean, it was only like 6 seconds, but
yeah, it was funny because he said, well, aren't you going to open it? Oh.
And that's when I knew it definitely wasn't a ring if he's expecting her to open it.
Right. And they were beautiful earrings. And frankly, I don't think he had anything to be ashamed of.
No.
I mean, yes, it had the very meaningful engraving, but I'm glad he felt silly about saying that because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't want to give a woman a pocket watch. You know, that's not what women had back in those days. And I thought those would be a perfectly appropriate birthday gift. So
yeah.
Yeah.
But he also had forgotten that she gives gifts, which apparently he knew. But had forgotten. So I can see where in that moment you bought this and now all of a sudden you're getting a gift that you weren't really expecting and you think it's kind of extravagant. And so I can see just being a little self-conscious about if yours is good enough.
Oh, no, I get it. But
not that she wouldn't like them, but feeling like you should have done more or something.
Yeah, but holding on to it made it worse.
Oh yeah, and I think he understood that once she explained it to him. But I mean, oh my gosh, the way her eyes teared up when it wasn't a ring. How telling is that? I mean, that should be if he was waiting for any sign that she was ready, I feel like he's got it.
I don't think there could be any doubt in his head, in his entire head at this point. Yes, she was disappointed, but she still said, this is beautiful. Mm-hmm. You know, these are beautiful. So bottom line, we have the L word. So let it be.
And it was beautiful. What is your overall impression of the scene?
The scene? Okay, if I'm
the I love you scene, we'll be talking about it forever.
So if I am being 100% honest, there was one thing that I was kind of like, oh, just a tiny bit disappointed. It was the kiss. I didn't think that I'm getting Hallmark racy, everybody. I didn't think that it was intense enough for the first
moment.
Yeah, I thought it was very tame for the first announcement of I love you. And obviously there was a great deal of relief on both their parts. So what I will say though is what I felt the kiss lacked, the reactions made up for. I even wrote that down in my notes. Like I thought the kiss needed a little bit more, but the reactions were top notch and perfect. I thought that was great.
I think that's a good observation. And also I'll take it a step further and just say, in general, I don't think that they have a lot of intense kisses.
I beg to differ. Not a lot, but
but I mean the majority of the time that it's kind of a short, quick embrace. Versus what I recall, maybe it's my memory because I haven't watched like season 3 and 4 for a while, but I feel like there were many more intense kisses back then. And maybe that's like they're young and it's first love and all of that kind of stuff. I don't know.
May I draw your attention to the season 8 finale?
Of course not that one.
May I draw your attention to the saloon when her words were, and I quote, "Oh, what the heck?" You know?
Oh, okay, that one. Okay, that one too. That was different though, because with all the people around, it was very short and very
it was more intense.
Okay, yes, that's a good word for it. That is a good word for it.
Thank you.
I think they are older and more mature. She's, been married before. She doesn't have quite the same just like angst over what's going to happen. I don't think she usually gets quite as worked up and concerned about things. Like this was a little more out of character for her to be this worried about what was happening between them, even though I think she had every right to be, given his odd comments about like living out in the middle of nowhere all of a sudden.
Going through a midlife crisis, this man is.
Right, which he again responded to perfectly in that the three of us can do whatever we decide to do.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Having been married before, I think it would be easier for her to get passionate. She's not as timid and tentative. And a new relationship is a new relationship.
And that's why the early kisses, I think, were a little bit more intense.
Okay. Obviously, we're going to agree to disagree on this one. There's only so many times we can talk about kissing in one episode.
Are there, though?
Oh, gosh. When the fans break out, it's time to move on. Okay, very quickly, let's go to the red dresses. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
So cute. So precious. I saw the picture of the two of them on Instagram. I almost wish I hadn't, because it was such a beautiful and just precious reveal of the two of them in almost identical clothing, and Elizabeth mimicking Rosemary's flary arms.
Which they had obviously rehearsed.
Well, yes. And Lee's very witty comment.
Oh my gosh.
How are we going to tell them apart? If this hadn't been the I love you episode, that probably would have been my favorite line. Yes.
Right. There were a lot of good lines in this though.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, that was just so precious. And when Lucas walked up, I didn't think that he was going to make himself known before she took the newspaper down. I'm
so glad he did.
I don't know. I thought it would have been kind of fun for her to get as red as her dress. You know?
She was already flustered.
I know, but that's what makes it so cute. But we haven't seen Elizabeth in red for
8 years.
The last time I remember it is when Rosemary showed up.
Yeah. And she said to Jack, "You will never see me in red again."
Right. But yeah, because, Lucas walks up, kind of hands on his hips or hands in his pockets, and Rosemary does her little devilish smile. So I thought she was just going to go over there and snatch the paper. But Lucas said, Yes, I would very much like to see that. So then the newspaper gets pulled away, and I loved his brava.
So sweet.
Let's move from the Coulters to Lee. They want him.
Awkward.
That's a shock to the system. Holy moly.
So apparently his editorial on Hiccup got more eyes. Yeah, that surprised me and made me really nervous.
Yeah. I mean, and Gilchrist came when she wasn't in on purpose.
I don't know if that makes me dislike him more or like him more, because I feel like they're trying to get us to not like him. But in some ways, I do think that that was a respectful way to approach it, in that I don't think it was all good, but I think that he was trying
to spare her feelings.
At least until he knew if this was like something Lee was interested in, or, you know.
Well, because Rosemary, being the person that she is, she would have just gone straight up to him with her flair, like, yes, I would absolutely. We want your husband. Oh, it would have been very difficult for her to hear that, I think.
Rightly so. She started this.
Yeah. And
she created it.
Yeah. And so while she would be happy for him, it would be a big blow.
I don't see, I mean, obviously it's a TV show. We want them to stay in Hope Valley, blah, 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 blah,
blah, blah, blah.
If it wasn't, and it's like reality somehow, I don't see it even really being that appealing to Lee to go live in a big city.
Oh no, he loves Hope Valley.
Write an editorial for a big giant newspaper. He's enjoyed it, and he seems to have a really good knack for it, obviously, if somebody big like that is impressed by his work, but I just don't see this even being something he would realistically contemplate.
Yeah, I believe you're right. I don't think he would.
Regardless of the Rosemary factor of then they'd have to move away and close, not have.
No, he's settled there.
Yeah, and happy, very happy.
Very, very happy. Okay, so Gilchrist.
I'm sorry, Matthew, but I can't get a read on you. I want to like you.
I had to giggle. I had to giggle when it was Gilchrist and Lee in the office, and then Jerome comes in and Lee says, Mr. Smith. I'm like, that's his real name. Kevin's talking to himself. But I can't get a read on him because he seems to be uncomfortable with choices that Jerome makes. And yet he does things like this, where he goes and talks to Lee behind Rosemary's back, when initially he spoke to her about coming and meeting. And then we thought that he was really creepy towards Fiona. And now it almost looks like there's a mutual respect that could possibly turn into an attraction there.
Right.
And, it sincerely seems like he's the kind of man who is just used to dealing with business colleagues. He's not
male business colleagues.
Male business colleagues. He is not used to courting a woman. He's not even used to talking to a woman. And
definitely not used to working with a woman.
No. And while he was very polite in pulling out her chair for her, he still assumed that it was okay for them to sit at that table. And I love his, oh, I'm sorry, is this, it's fine. But it was good that he realized it. It was good that he realized it, that she wants to be consulted. And he says, we got off on the wrong foot, you and I'd like to take you to dinner to discuss business. she says, because we work together, I don't think that would be a waste of time. I think that would be a good use of time. I need some respect. And he seems more than willing to give it.
Yes.
It just seems like he needed to be schooled. And
I think that's exactly right. And you know what comes to my mind when you're talking is that I bet he went to an all boys private school.
yes, he doesn't know how to talk to women.
He does not seem like he's had much. He probably has no sisters.
Probably.
Maybe even lost his mom and was like raised by a single dad. Something like very, very inexperienced.
Or he could have been raised by a housekeeper who was an employee of the family. So it was very different. Well, congratulations, Sarah. You just wrote a backstory for a character. That's such an actor thing to do. I'm so proud.
Just came to me.
you think we were, trying to write things.
Weird.
Weird.
Yeah, so odd. Yeah, I really want to like Gilchrist. I don't have any there isn't, it isn't certain he'll be in next week's episode, but I do feel like it's written in a way that he could be back next year. It's definitely written in a way that there could be something
because
between
they left
him and
but
Fiona.
that doesn't mean that he
Doesn't mean they won't come back.
Yeah.
But also I think there's enough closure with some of the stuff that happened that it really all could be kind of resolved in the next episode in terms of some of the big overarching mine issues and oil company issues. Really, all of that really could be resolved, and honestly it could be resolved without them in town, without us seeing Smith and Gilchrist again.
Yeah, it could. Well, while we're on the oil company, let's go to the Scotsman.
Yes.
Colin McQuarrie.
Yes. Well, I did call.
You called it.
That was him standing next to Gowan at the mine that we didn't see his face.
We called a lot.
He had an amazing accent.
It was awesome. We called a lot in this episode. What do you think about it? We called the earrings. We called Colin. What else did we call? I mean, I just said I wanted the L word. I didn't know it would be said in this episode, but
right.
I really hoped it would be said before the ring, and I got it. So yeah, we got a lot of scores with this one. Too bad we didn't make any bets.
Well, we were kind of in agreement on most of it.
Yeah, that's the thing. We didn't disagree on them. So yeah, the conversation that Colin has with Henry, when you see them at the mouth of the mine and Henry gets angry and throws the papers across the car, and Jerome says, "Wait, Henry, let's talk about this." No more talking. Can't say I blame the man.
Not one bit.
No, he's tired of talking, because look what talking got him.
And it did. Like, there's no point. There is no point talking to that man.
Right. No, there really isn't. When and just like what he said, when Lucas said maybe Bill will be successful in securing the temporary stay, and Jerome will just buy that judge. There's no point in talking anymore. But that conversation that Henry and Colin had, at first you want to get so angry with him. It was too much to turn down. I'm like, you have a price. Henry said it, like, every man has his price. But then he says, "I've got no life ahead of me, Henry." And I'm like, oh.
And he didn't come out and say it, but it sure sounded, to me at least, like he didn't have any family.
It did not sound like he had family. He just wanted to end his life in peace and a little bit of comfort, because he's dying. All those years in coal mines, and I don't remember the name of the town in Scotland where the mine was for him, but 218 of his men he lost. And
That's
then
got him. I mean, look at where Henry is after their mine disaster of 47 men.
of 47.
And granted, numbers don't fully matter in a situation like this, and you've just got that much larger of a situation, that many more families
Yeah.
that are probably coming to you like people went at Henry afterwards.
And okay, Gowan fans are going to kill me.
Jane, cover your ears.
I love
Jane
you,
Jenkins.
Jane. But Colin reminded Henry of the way he used to be. And that I think is important because a lot of people try to forget the way Henry was. You know, like, well, he's reformed now. I'm like, we're forgetting that he used to be a snake and he caused a lot of pain in this town. And Colin reminded him that there was once a time when he acted like Jerome is acting now. And he's saying, you sent the miners down there when it was black as pitch and there was hardly enough air to fill a man's lungs. So it was a good callback to remind Henry of what he used to be so that he can, I'm not saying he should condone Smith's position in any way, but I think it shows him how far he has come and how much he values life now and how much this means to him, because it didn't as much in the first season.
I think it was a really good reminder for viewers.
Yeah.
This is where it's tough for me because I think obviously there's this overarching redemption storyline for him throughout the entire series. I think, how do you, and by you, I mean like Henry, how does Henry fully forgive himself while still, I think he can never forget. I think that memory of who he was, not just the memory of what happened to these people and how horrible he feels about that, but the memory of the type of person he was. I think that has to stay with him to some level because it helps him not ever become that man again.
I'll tell you what he does. He blows up the mine to make sure it never happens again.
Have you ever been so happy watching someone break the law?
Okay, but that reaction, I guess the writers and directors were saving this reaction for when the mine was going to blow up, because when the oil derrick, I said this last time, when the oil derrick exploded, I expected some kind of reaction from the town more than there was. And this time it was exactly like I thought it would be. All these people who were there and all these people who weren't there but know the history, and all these people who are involved but don't want to be, and they just look up and hear the boom, or they stand up, or they stop whatever they're doing. Oh, that was such a beautiful moment to me.
The only thing I would have liked is if they had shown more people's reactions.
I agree, but there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, totally. But that's the only thing I think would have made it more powerful. That was amazingly done.
Yeah. So Nathan and Faith, are you confused?
I don't know that confused is the right word.
Maybe not, but
I don't know. It's one of those things where I don't know that we're even gonna know what is happening this season. It, as much as it's setting up possibilities for next season, depending upon what they decide to do.
Yeah.
So I can't fully get behind anything because I don't want to be disappointed if it's not the way it goes later. If something is really clear cut next week, I think I'll be able to like get behind, whatever direction it's going. But if it just feels like the point of the season is to set up possibilities and to show that Nathan's ready to move on with someone. I don't necessarily feel like the point of this is to have him start moving on with someone until probably next year. And that's just based on what we've seen and also just random comments and interviews that people have given. I feel more like the point of this season was to help him move on.
I am hoping that we don't have another long drawn out triangle.
I can't imagine they would do that at this point.
I hope not.
A short triangle, it already appears like it's in the works, but we don't know that May's coming back for sure. No. We don't know if Carson's coming back.
It doesn't.
Can I throw this out there though? There have been a lot of mentions of him for someone who's not coming back.
4, I think, maybe 5.
Like something like that. And it just, to me, like if he, like, I love that they're mentioning him. I love that it's not a black hole. It's not just dropped. It is reality that if somebody moves away, people still have contact with them.
Yeah.
It's still a part of their lives.
Especially with the telephone.
And he is not only her ex-boyfriend, but he is also her ex-colleague.
Yeah. And the town's previous doctor. And a person who has a lot of knowledge on her journey in her professional journey. And so it makes perfect sense that there's some communication, not an issue. But the fact that it's the way it's been written in at different moments really does make me question if maybe they're, again, just leaving that door open in case he was available to come back the next year. I don't know. I almost wonder though, if that conversation between Faith and Molly, and here's the thing, when they do this and they splice together different scenes to piece together, and I love how they did that. It was beautiful. And it was really fun to watch the way they did it back and forth. And it makes you think they're obviously talking about Molly and Bill and Faith and Nathan. However, and the two couples were talking basically.
However, what if they were actually talking about Carson? She said at one point, I feel the same way about Carson, but because of the way it was spliced together, you assume she's referencing the way Molly feels about Bill, you assume
the way Molly felt about Patrick,
about Patrick, her husband. However, it could have been a comment about Bill, a current feeling. I feel the same way about Carson. It's undeniable.
It could have.
I don't know. I wonder if, again,
but let's be honest,
led in one direction and then something else is going to happen.
Let's be honest, that undeniable attraction was very present in Dr. Carter's office.
There was a little bit of that. Yeah.
I always wondered how, when there's a doctor and a patient of different genders and they're attracted to each other, how the heck do you remain objective in that appointment?
Yeah, that could get awkward.
I mean, she's got her little light.
And this is just like examining his head.
I know. Like, she's got her little light and she's looking deep into those blue eyes. And I would have a lot of trouble.
While we're on this scene, because it's my running joke throughout the whole season, I have to say, do you think it's an ice cream headache?
Oh, gosh. You're fired.
It's Nathan. He loves ice cream.
Maybe
he just started having headaches. What?
maybe it's the lack of ice cream.
Mm-hmm. See?
Yeah.
It all goes back to ice cream.
No.
Also, there was no gooey butter cake this week, so.
Oh, you poor baby.
Oh, I've still got some because I made.
Yes, I know. No. Now
But
there's
there was none on
paprika
this,
sprinkled chicken.
Yeah, that is not quite as appealing. I mean, I'm sure it's tasty, but come on now.
So coming to the end, two things. Number one, Mike's back.
Whew.
Yay!
Okay. That was a really fast trip, so I hope that's a good sign.
We don't know how many days exactly have passed.
But he even said, I wasn't gone very long.
I wasn't gone very long.
So it was less time than he thought it was going to be. And he seemed in very good spirits.
He did.
Which also I hope is a very good sign.
Mm-hmm.
At the very least, it doesn't seem like he's trying to like leave Hope Valley, like move away.
Yeah, it doesn't. Number two, Lucas disappeared. And we don't know what the letter said.
The only weird part about that to me is that she didn't rip it open immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is a good sign that she has a lot more confidence and trust that he just needed to do something. Okay, no big deal. Now, a couple things have been pointed out to me on Twitter since then, because when I watched it, I was like, this is weird. And of course, the original thought of like, does he just run away every like that's kind of creepy. Have
Red
another
flag.
response. But the other aspect of this though is he just said how much he now discovered that he might really enjoy horseback riding versus driving in the car. So at first I'm like, that's really weird that he didn't take his car. However, he just had that conversation about enjoying horseback riding.
Right.
So
yeah,
I
didn't find that part weird.
The other thing that I did see somebody post as just a thought, a question, could he be going to get a ring or talk to Mr. Thatcher?
Both possibilities.
Which would explain why there was not more of a discussion with her before he left.
That's true. I just think it very strange timing. You both declare your love for each other. You both are very relieved and comfortable and excited about that. And then he disappears. I mean, it's a good thing that she's confident because another woman may have cracked. He's gone.
Well, and it's interesting that Gustav is so worried.
See, yeah, and we don't know why he left because we don't know what the letter said. We don't know what he said to Gustav. Obviously, he said nothing to Elizabeth. It's a bit of a fishy way to leave town.
Yeah. The only other thing I can think is that it still has to do with everything going on and that like
maybe
Jeanette from New Orleans, something, but again, he's not going to take a horse to New Orleans.
No, he's not going to take a horse when it's an emergency.
Or to go that far.
Yeah, that's
and we've heard that character does not appear on screen this season.
Yes.
So unless he's going to meet his parents somewhere to get a family heirloom ring.
That could be a possibility. Yes.
But yeah, it just seems very secretive.
And very strange timing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the timing is the only reason I thought it could be connected to a proposal because he now knows she's ready.
True. He better have a very good explanation, young man, when he comes back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Preview for next week's the finale. All right. I'm just gonna say what we see first of all. Okay. I'm just gonna say what we see. Henry escorted by Bill into the jail and the town claps for him. Henry in jail saying, "I'm no hero." Rosemary and Faith. Faith says, "Lee still has no idea." Rosemary responds, I think it may be time to tell him. Nathan turning around on Newt and looking at something or somebody. Bill kissing little Jack's head, which was so cute. We didn't even see him kiss him when he was a baby. So this is so cute. Lucas saying, Elizabeth, I've never been more sure. Lucas getting down on one knee in the middle of the street with little Jack standing right behind him. Joseph knocking on Elizabeth's door and saying that the saloon's on fire. Number 8, Lee taking 1 second with Rosemary, then running into this burning building with Rosemary screaming, Lee! Oh, and I mean, there's nothing about where Lucas went in the preview, so I'm assuming we'll find out, but I just found that interesting. So my question for you, when Lee runs into the building, do you think he knows?
That was actually the first thing I asked my kids.
Because I can see this 2 ways.
I can see it either way.
Yeah. What do you think?
I'm gonna go with he doesn't know because I have reason to believe that's not the cliffhanger. That's not the very end of the show with the fire. I've seen a couple just still shots that look like they're supposed to take place after the fire. So I feel like there's just enough time afterwards that it makes more sense to have it be more of a like, how could you put yourself at risk like that? You're going to be a father kind of conversation afterwards.
So,
but I'm not certain.
Okay. So my one way, if he knows, then I don't know who he goes in the building after. We don't know who's still in there. I did not see Lucas in the crowd. It's possible he went in to help Lucas, because that moment with her, it was a split second that we saw, but it's obvious that they were having a very intense moment. I like that word today. That's my key word for the day. but she could be saying, you can't do this. And he could be saying, I have to help him. And then going in. Now, the other way that I can see it is Rosemary still keeps putting it off. Maybe she decided to tell him that night over a candlelight dinner or something like that. And then
she started the fire?
No.
With the candles?
No. I'm talking about at their house.
Okay.
And then they hear that the saloon is on fire and they go, and he runs in and she's screaming for him to come back, because what if I lose him and he doesn't even know that he's going to be a father? Because that's exactly what happened to her best friend.
Yeah.
Her best friend lost her husband before he knew he was going to be a father.
Yeah. And
you cannot tell me that that's not running through her head, at least partially.
Yeah. Especially when it was her choice not to tell him.
Yes. Whew.
Okay. So what do you think? Yeah, I don't know. Oh,
I don't even begin to know what to think. So I'm just gonna wait for next week. that's all I can say.
Sure. Brian hinted that there was some sort of cliffhanger.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the fire itself. I don't think it's, will someone make it out of the fire? Someone could still be at, see, I can't call it the infirmary anymore. Someone will be at the doctor's office. That sounds so less exciting.
Clinic.
Like
clinic.
Anyway. somebody could certainly be, in a coma or something after, passed out from smoke inhalation or something.
Yeah.
That could certainly be an ending.
Well, and how did the saloon catch on fire in the first place? Did Walden or Spurlock come back or send somebody back to do it?
Oh, please let it be original Spurlock.
I
want to see
Steve Bassett, come on down.
That would be classic. That would be, I mean, if you're gonna have, if it's gotta be like arson, that would just be, he knows how to do arson. This would be so, it could be whale oil. I'm just, telling you.
No whale oil. No whale oil.
Well, come on, just for nostalgia.
Because it doesn't burn. It just smokes and stinks to high heaven.
Fine. Anyway.
So that is where we leave you.
That is it.
I guess we'll see.
We will see who Nathan is looking at from his horse.
Or what he's looking at. All right, hearties. Have a good night, will ya? This is the Scottish Hook Hardy signing off. Now say goodbye to the Hook-eyed Hardy. That kind of slipped into Irish.
Good night, Hardies. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.